Welcome to the Simply Be Found Huddle. You've got Dean and Rob with Simply Be Found, we have our guest Dennis today. Dennis, how are you doing?
I'm well. I'm Dennis. I also go by DM, my initials, and so that's what my friends call me. I don't really like you guys yet. Dennis is fine.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
There's a guy from the chamber we go to. I mean, he greets everybody by flipping them off. So I guess direct message is better. But if you,
There you
that's
go.
that's the first thing I think of when I hear DM. But
Yeah. Yep.
so tell everybody kind of what you do, what you're all about, and kind of give your background to kind of get everything started.
Absolutely. So what I do is I'm the founder and CEO of the Legal Podcast Network. And what we do is turnkey, holistic podcasting, primarily for, well, really right now, almost exclusively for the legal industry. Two sets of people we work with: attorneys themselves. That's 90% of our client base. And we're really helping them with differentiation, really becoming, establishing authoritative positioning within their marketplace for their ideal client profile. Then the second group that we work with are people that actually market to attorneys, because we market to about 200,000 attorneys through. We've got 7 marketing systems, anywhere from LinkedIn and cold email and opt-in email, all that fun stuff that we use. And so somebody can come to us and say, hey, like, I'm a jury selection consultant and attorneys are my clients. How do I get connected in with you guys? And, so we'll kind of put them in our system, and it's a mutually beneficial relationship, because now we're providing content to our clients while serving our clients, while getting paid to serve our clients the content that our clients need. So and actually that wasn't part of the business plan. That just kind of happened as we were doing it. People started saying, well, I'm not an attorney. I know I'm listed in legal services, but I'm actually, a nurse practitioner who helps with personal injury attorney cases. Can we work together? And I was, yeah, sure. Like, why not? And then as that started happening, we were just like adding more and more of those. So we've been doing this not quite a year, seeing some pretty decent growth. We started with just an idea, and we're at about 100 clients now. We have about 25 people on the team. Of those, are 25, 30. I honestly lose count, because we're always like hiring a couple people for this or that.
Yeah.
Of that, we have 3 people that are selling the product. So we're not a sales machine. We're actually more of a production company with a sales team attached to it, versus most marketing companies are sales machines with a marketing product attached to them. My background, graduated from high school, summa cum barely, with a 2.43 GPA. Then went on to a well-known unaccredited Bible Institute in the middle of Marietta, Ohio, with well over 30 people in the institute. Got my esteemed associates from there. While I was there, needed to make money. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 14. Made my own money, anything from underground boxing organizations for 10-year-old boys to beat each other up while all the kids paid $1 to come to our backyard, to my real business that I had was snow shoveling that turned into paper routes and mowing lawns. But all I did was get the clients, collect the money, and then I paid my brother and all of his friends, and they did the jobs. I got half the money, they got half the money. So while they were mowing lawns, shoveling walks, or delivering papers, I was playing basketball, buying Jordans, whatever. But, most of those 12, 13-year-old boys, they're afraid to knock on the doors and ask for money. So I wasn't afraid to do it. So we got all the jobs in the neighborhood, basically anything within walking distance. Fast forward to college. I'm working at a desk job, making $5.25 minimum wage. And a buddy of mine's like, hey, dude, I just got this job making $9 an hour, telemarketing. And I was like I grew up not really, I'm probably a natural born salesperson, But I always told them I'm not going to be a salesperson, because to me, like, a salesperson was somebody who lies for a living and lets their family down by not showing up when they say they're going to be there. So to me, I had no desire to be in sales. But I go and I'm like, $9 an hour. Like, I can't, that's like almost twice what I'm making. And as I'm making my $9 an hour, doing well, they actually moved me over into like where I was writing scripts and rebuttals within like 3 months. I was the number one solicitor in like the company of over 5,000. There's actually a documentary on this company called the Civic Development Group. And if you look it up, there's a little documentary of it. Like, I don't know if they're still around, but this was like back in the, mid 90s, in the heyday before the DNC and all that fun stuff. And that industry disappeared. But I noticed, although I was making $20 an hour and I could come and go as I please, being a script writer and rebuttal development, there's like this group of like 10 guys who were like, they only work business hours. They were making like $30-$40 an hour. And I was like, what are they doing? And they were like, oh, those guys, they sell ads in the police magazines. And I was like, well, then that's what I want to do, because they're making more money than me. And if I'm good enough to write a script, I should be good enough to call. So I get into there. I do well. They actually make me the manager. I'm like 19, 20 years old, managing guys my age now in like their 40s. And saw success there. Then got recruited to sell advertising in hospital patient handbooks. Started traveling, making like $3-4 grand a week at like 20 years old. And I'm just like, wow, like, this is amazing. Then started my own thing with a guy, invented a product that was called a just in case emergency guide, 6x9 magnet. In the middle was poison control, animal control, on-call nurse at the hospital, emergency power outage number, 10 to 12 numbers that any family would need at a moment's notice.
So you're that guy. I bought those for my business, by
exactly.
the way. So I may have bought it from you. I don't know. But
one of my salespeople, but yes. So me and a guy started in a room. It was like 6x8. We took turns making phone calls, so we couldn't be on the phone at the same time. Within 1 year, we were doing $5 million. We had like 30, 40 employees. We were a net 25% profit margin. I actually semi-retired, lived in Romania for a few years, back and forth. And, then just continued my entrepreneurial journey. Early 2000s, I was like, the internet's where it's at. And then I started selling to attorneys pretty quickly after I got into the internet. As I started selling to attorneys, I'd been selling $300 ads and then $500 ads. And then in the hospital patient handbooks, it was like one-off $2,000, $3,000 ads, which I thought was great. Then I'm selling to personal injury attorneys, and they're like, yeah, this product, you call them, we get 5 personal injury attorneys per market. It's $5,000 a month. And I'm like, what? I'm like, they'll pay that? And they're like, oh yeah, they'll pay that. Don't worry about it. So I start selling and making really good money. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm selling to attorneys from now on, not just because of the money. Here's what it really was for me. I don't like to be that guy that's like, now let me ask you a question. If I were to bring you 5 new clients a month, how would that change your life? Could you take your wife on that cruise? Could you take your wife on that cruise? Could you buy the kids that motorbike they've been, that like emote to me? I feel like now, if that's your style, no criticism. But for me, I felt like that was emotional manipulation. I didn't really feel like it was, but like with attorneys, they know the games. So you just have to be like, hey, this is who I am. You have to stand up to them. You have to look them in their eyes, figuratively or literally, if we're on Zoom now. You have to be on their same level. They need to feel that you're just as capable as they are at law. You need to be just as capable of whatever it is you're telling them that you're going to do for them. So I could have logical conversations. Also, attorneys, they tend to be less emotional in their decision-making processes. So as I'm talking to them, if I would challenge them, contractor, you mother blank, don't you tell me how to run my business, and I just, getting cussed out 8 times a day, just, it does something to your soul, So I'm talking to attorneys, not to say you don't get cussed out by attorneys occasionally, but we had like logical conversations where I would say, well, have you considered this? Yeah. And they said, da, 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 da. Well, yeah, but what about, and then finally you know what? makes sense. Let's go ahead and give it a try. Let's work together.
Well, they're already trained. They're already trained to think logically. They have good ethos. Everything about them is very
exactly. So that's why I've worked with them for the most part for 20 years. And I've had social agencies, I've had SEO companies, I've had, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And me and my partner, I guess this was December of 23. We had a 5-year contract. I came in, he had 78 clients. He was 9 years into having his company. He was doing less than $1 million a year. And I came in and I said, listen, I can blow this thing up. I've already blown up 2 companies to 3 to 5 million in like a year to 3 years. I was like, let's put this arrangement together. So I got a percentage of the gross profits and then overrides on the team that I built and everything. And in 5 years, built it up to like 400 or 500 clients doing like $5 million a year. And it comes time to renew my contract. And instead of going, maybe this guy could take me to 20 million, he had some people in his ear. And, they're saying, he's making like 150 grand more than you are, and you own the company. And it's like, he didn't have a problem with that until these guys were in his ear all of a sudden. And he bought me out for pennies on the dollar because we had a buyout agreement from when I came in. And but I'm of the opinion, if you're a real entrepreneur, take everything I own away from me. Give me a laptop. I've got a notebook with ideas that I just write business ideas in, and an internet connection. And in 3 to 30 days, I'm going to be back right where I was. Right. I'm going to have a product launch. I'm going to be talking to people. I'm going to be selling. I'm going to be fulfilling. I'm going to be hiring people. I'm going to be moving. And that's what I did.
Dennis, it's one of those things to where I agree with you on that, because I had a hostile takeover happen. I had a partner that was an attorney at the time. He did a hostile takeover when my 9-year-old was born, or I guess she's going to be 10 now. So when she was born, he did a hostile takeover 3 weeks afterwards when my wife was in having gallbladder surgery.
Oh.
So I had all my money inside of this company, did a hostile takeover. I went ahead and started with nothing. So I was negative $76 in my bank account at that time.
Yep.
So I was like, all right, what am I going to do? Well, I need some fast cash. I walked into a car lot and I said, hey, I want to work here. Got hired on, started the next day, went to the top of the charts there, started my web design company while working for the car lot, just made sure I was on top, and started fighting ups. And I was selling more websites than I was cars by the time I left, and they knew it.
Yep.
Exactly. Yep. But you know what you said, Dennis, about you making more money than the owner of the company? I've seen that happen more than once, where you have salespeople that are out there that are just killing it. They're crushing it. And so what? They're making more than you are. They're the ones out there beating the pavement and doing that. And I don't understand the logic behind that, but I've had
you kill sales teams that way.
Yeah.
Well,
I've seen it happen more than once.
Well, my specialty has always been sales process development. So one thing I was able to do for a while is, after the 2008 crash, I would go into B2B businesses that have traditionally had all inbound sales, and the old school reps who would drive around and be friends with people and make money. And I would just come in and say, no, I don't need to leave the room. Give me a list and a phone, and I can make this thing happen. And they'd draw out the comp plan, and I'd be like, are you sure? So you're comfortable with this comp plan, no matter how it scales? Because I've had this happen 3 times. And, oh, yeah, no, not a problem. This is going to be great. It's no problem. And then, boom, 3 months later, 6 months later, whatever, there was this one company that it was, they were furniture, so they were like a furniture wholesaler. So they sold to the Ashley furniture places and things like that. And I go in, they have no concept of inside sales. They have these people they're paying $1.50, $1.25 to drive around and fly around and be friends with the furniture store owners across the country. And then I get in and I'm finding the small to mediums that they don't even want to touch. And while they're doing one $10,000 order a week, I'm doing 5 $2,000 orders a day. And I'm just ching, 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 ching. Now, all of a sudden, I'm making more than them. Now I'm making more than the VPs. Now the CEO sits me across and he goes, I got to change your comp plan. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, because you're making more than anybody else in the company and everybody's mad. You've only been here 6 months. Some people have been here 5 years and they built their book of business and they just don't think it's fair. And I'm like, I'm literally sitting in a room, walking around your showroom, taking pictures on my cell phone and sending it to people and then selling them a case or a pallet of stuff. And you're mad about this. And it was just like, I think people just get so corporately minded that when they get an entrepreneur in their midst, that's just like people who are in that corporate mindset. When someone comes in, that's just like, well, I don't care how it needs to get done. Let's make it happen. They don't think that's not how we do things. They think, how do we get things done? Corporate says that's not how we do things. Entrepreneur says, here's how we get things done.
And I think that's where I think there's a huge disconnect in the world today, especially. I think it's gotten worse. People can't think for themselves. So when an entrepreneur walks into a room, we're going, okay, I can make money from that. Oh, this idea. Oh, we don't have that in process. Hey, we can start this other company over here. Now, sometimes we can go ADHD and we start way too much shit, which we've all probably
it's something we have to teach ourselves.
I've been guilty of it multiple times.
Oh yeah. I've had 3 companies while pastoring a church full time, while having a family, while having hobbies, while being on chairs, like literally going 20 hours a day, not sleeping. I did that because first business was at like 20. My first pastorate was at 18. I got married at 19. I was like the youngest old man on the planet, you know? And then like, so I went like that till I was 36. I literally had a nervous breakdown at 36. When I was 36, I had a nervous breakdown. I had a church, 2 businesses, 3 kids, blah, blah, blah. And one day, I'm talking about vertigo. I'm talking about loss of speech, my brain locking up. And I thought I had MS. I spent a year and a half in bed thinking I had MS because my father did. And then I come to find out, I get in with the neurologist finally, because I don't know if you know this, but neurologists are not, you don't just walk in. There's no walk-in neurology clinic.
No, I agree.
Not that I'm aware of. And so I finally get in with the neurologist, and he had a very kind way of saying this. Instead of saying, dude, you had a nervous breakdown, he said, you have what we call successful man syndrome. And I was like, that's the coolest sounding disease I think anybody could have, right? And after I like kind of put two and two together in my head, I'm like, oh, he just means I went crazy. Got it. So you know, it is what it is. You have to teach yourself, and I find myself constantly doing that. But you know, you were talking about Rob about we can go in a room and we can. Me and my wife, she's come up with this game because she kind of grew up in like her mom's a teacher, she was a teacher, her dad was a business owner, but it was like a flower shop. And I don't think she was like involved in the thinking of entrepreneurial. Like her stepdad, who really more raised her, works for the government. All of her like aunts and uncles are teachers. Her grandpa was a policeman. So very civic minded, oriented, get a good education so that you can make 40 grand a year for somebody. And for a while, she's just like, you just frustrate me. Like, I just don't get you. Like, you know, you barely graduate high school and I've got a master's degree. You know, and it's like, I barely graduated high school because I had to graduate high school, not because I couldn't barely graduate high school. Like, you know, I always had teachers like, we're going to put you in gifted and talented. And I'm like, no, you're not. Cause then I have to do work. And that's not what I do. I just want out of here so I can go make money. Cause I already knew how to make money. I was already making money. So I knew like what was ahead of me. So me and my wife have this game where she'll say, you've got, like, we just did this the other night on our date night, and instead of going out, which I think I mentioned this earlier, I live on an island in Belize. So not a huge island, 12 mile wide by 25 miles long, I think, or 20 or 12 miles long by a mile wide.
Okay.
And if you've ever heard that song from Madonna in the 80s, last night I dreamed of San Pedro.
Yes.
Okay, so that's where I live.
Okay.
Anyway, so there's not a billion restaurants. It's not like I lived in Austin. I was a food writer. I was like one of the first like Instagram influencers for food there. Ballooned up to about 350 pounds. You know, had a waiting list of restaurants for me to stop by. Anyway, so we're sitting and we're doing date night. And what we did that night is we said, let's just turn off our phones and talk. So we're talking, and instead, you know, we talked about this, we talked about that. And then she goes, what would you do if you had $1,000 and you had to turn it into $10,000 And I said, well, where am I? And she said, you're in the United States. I was like, oh, that's easy. I was like, I would just like, honestly, I would just go take $1,000. And if let's say we're in Austin, Texas, I said, I'm going to be in a major city. I'm going to find out where all the festivals and open air things are, where there's tons of people. I'm going to spend $1,000 on those like light up toys that are 99 cents. And I'm going to sell them for $12 or $10 a piece. And I'll sell 1,000 of those in less than a week. And she's like, what? That's how you'd make money? I said, well, if that's what I have to do, I've got a week to make $10,000. That's what I would do. And she's like, okay, well, what would you do if you were on the island here? I was like, that's easier. I said, I would just go. I would buy an email list database. The demographics would be people who are about a certain age, that have a certain income, that have maybe done some searching. I'd maybe pull some data from Meta, Facebook, Instagram. I would pull some data from that, and I would, they've searched like living in the Caribbean, and so they've got some like demographic information that shows that. Then I would develop a 5-day course. I would send the 10,000 person list, get an opt-in to do the 5-day course. And then everybody who opted in and finished the course, this would be roughly probably 1,000 people. I would then sell $10 a piece to the myriad of realtors on this island, because there's only 2 things you can be on this island if you're not from Belize. You can own a restaurant or something like that, or you can be a real estate agent if you want to work here. That's basically all there is, right? So I was like, I would just go sell these leads. I'd be like, here's 100 people that make over 200 grand a year. They're over 55 or over 60. They live in these areas. They've been searching what it's like to live in the Caribbean. They've taken this 5-day course on what it takes to move to Belize. And here you go, $10 a piece. I'd sell out, boom, just like that. And she's just like, and I'll tell you guys, the brain can be pretty damn sexy. Because what happened next.
I mean, but it's one of those things to where that's what's different in the wired brain, especially when you've started. I've lost everything a couple of times.
That's a buy.
It's one of those things to where I do some of my best work when I get put into a box. Yep. We had a bunch of stuff happen with our platform, so we built this whole entire platform. It was Google based. Google made lots of different changes. The world of search has changed. We had to flip it. We've done some of our best work since we had to flip that. Wouldn't you agree, Dean?
I would agree with that. We call it the pivot.
Yep.
We did that back in July of last year, and we are better and more stable than we've ever been. So, so it's one of those things sometimes, because an entrepreneurial brain goes, okay, I've got this situation. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to fix it. And that
literally my brain just says, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
But that's how we think. I mean, people don't understand it. We're a bit. I did a whole. Rob keeps saying I need to publish this thing, but I did a whole thing on the narcissistic brain of the entrepreneur, if you will, or a small business owner, and we're all a bit narcissistic in a way. Some are worse than others. And
right.
You know what I'm talking about there, but no, it really is. We are just wired differently, because I was in the corporate world. I'm in the middle here. And Rob, he's over here on this thing. But Rob, it was like you just get through high school. That's all I wanted to do. I
have my GED.
And I'm sitting here with a master's degree in industrial management with an undergraduate in engineering, and I was in the corporate world. My brain didn't fit in that corporate world. It just did not. I got myself in more trouble because I can't keep my mouth shut. Because they go, we need to cut everything by 10%. This is the corporate brain going, we need to cut costs by 10%. I walked into the management meeting and I said, I didn't come up with anything to cut, but I've got opportunities that we're missing out on.
Right. Why don't we just make 10% more?
Right. So, but there, but that's the problem with sometimes when you have a CPA leading a business. I'm not picking on CPAs, but it's all about numbers. And they look at cutting costs instead of opportunities that are out there. So I think that's what sets entrepreneurs off a little bit differently. Yeah. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. And I was going to say, you use different. My phraseology for myself is very simply, I just say adapt and overcome.
Right.
That's it. Adapt and overcome. You talk about corporate. So I have 3 grown children. When my 2 children were kind of hitting that like late junior high, get ready to get in high school, we had some issues with one of my children, mental health problems, in and out of the hospital for that, things like that. And being an entrepreneur, I had this business that was just going like gangbusters. We were looking at franchising. It was a social, we called it media social. And it was essentially a local media outlet run by volunteers with checks and balances. And I had 15 volunteers. I launched this is like 2012 to 2014. I launched a Facebook page, and in like a week we had 25,000 followers. And we were posting like 30 times a day. Like we owned this community. We ended up then I would do is people would say, how do I work with you? I'd say, well, there's sponsorships and things like that, but also like we can do your social media and kind of plug you in. And I would charge them like $400 a month to do their social media. And then I would take a housewife in the community, because she would go in with her phone and her kids and then look at the thing and talk. And so I'd say, just, you need to go in an hour or 2 a month, take some pictures, things like that. You got to post every day. And I paid them like, I paid them 200. I kept 200 for the business. And it was like literally hands off money for that. And then on top of it, then we had big corporate sponsorships, things like that. Anyway, long story short, my now ex-wife was like, listen, like, if you don't stop, because like I was talking to the local news, because we would break news before the news. The news would call us literally and say, is this, because I would have people, as soon as something would happen, that, oh, tell ABA, and they would put it in the thing, and then I would get pinged, and then I would have somebody near there, and I'd say, hey, somebody says this has happened, and they'd go check and say, yep, it's happening. Okay, give me, what's the details? And then we would post it. So then the news outlets, Channel 6, would be like, hey, can you tell me more, or whatever channel outlet it was, and they would be hitting me in my inbox. So I carried 2 cell phones, an iPad, and a laptop, and everywhere I sat down, I would have to set up a command center. Like we would be at dinner, and like we would have to have a table for 8 for me and my family of 5, because 3 seats were mine with my command center, because 24/7 I was basically the, my ADHD brain loved it. My entrepreneur brain loved it, because I was the, spider conduit. But anyway, my now ex-wife says, if I need you here, like I need you present, we can't lose our daughter. And that's a very fair thing to need and want. Not complaining whatsoever. Sold my business for pennies on the dollar, moved to Austin, Texas, went in and just said, let me find a sales job. I'll sell marketing online. I'll make good money, kind of like Rob did. Went and got a car sales job. You know what you could do if you have to do it.
Right. Don't want to.
Yeah. So I go take this corporate job. In the beginning, they're like, this and this and this, and any questions? I'm like, I just want to know how much the top 5 salespeople, because they had like 700 salespeople. So it wasn't like a small place. I'm like, what do the top 5 salespeople make, and how long have they been here on average? And all of them made over 200, and all of them had been there over 3 years. I said, that's all I need to know. I'm in. Then I get there. So that's like June 1st is my starting date. They go through a month of training. In training, I break the top 10 in the company. And the first 2 weeks, we don't even touch the phones. We're literally on the phones 6 days in the first month, and I break the top 10. Then I get on the floor and I hit the bottom of the top 5. And I'm like, I'm going to be number 1 in this company. So I'm like taking the first demo at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm taking the last demo in Hawaii at 11 o'clock at night. And some nights I'm sleeping under my desk until I'm number 1, and until I can get back on top, because I had given everything up. So then I get to where I'm so good at it, I would take 2 demos a day, which were about 1-hour demos, because this was buy or die days, right? So they stayed on the phone till they either cussed you out and hung up, or gave you their credit card. And so
that's like timeshares, man.
Yeah, I know. That's what we did. That was that company's way of doing things. So I get to the give me just a second here. I get to the like I'm number 1, number 2, number 3 in the company, and I'm doing it in 2 hours a day. I'm taking 2 demos, And then the rest of the time, I'm just like walking around. I know everybody in the company. There's like 500 people, all kinds. And I'm friends with and that's how I was in high school. I know everybody. I'm not in your clique. I'm not in your clique. Everybody used to call me like, there's people, not everybody, but there's people that would jokingly call me the UN of this company, because it was like, I'd have a get together and it'd be like, 8 people from this clique and 4 people from this clique. And everybody would get along because they were at my thing. I had my 40th birthday party. I roasted a whole hog, 180 pounds of meat, and we had 360 people run through there from Friday night until brunch on Sunday. So but they hate the upper management loved me. Middle management hated my guts. They would pull me in and they'd be like, well, you're making this and you're only working 2 hours a day. Imagine if you did this and did this. And I was like, first of all, are you familiar with the law of diminishing returns? Because I'm not going to sit at my desk. Yeah, I did do that. But I did do that to get to this point. I didn't work from 7 in the morning running demos until 11 at night so that I could do that forever. I learned what I needed to make. But the corporate world, there was just people like it was funny because like VPs would come from like the big corporate, and they would come and they would have arranged standing meetings with me, and then middle management wouldn't see them but twice a year. And so like they got, they would be jealous and angry and you're going to, and it's just like, what, I'm just here. Like, I just want to make money. I just want to not be stressed. I just want to take care of my family. I just want to do my thing. But the corporate environment can't see that. They only see like the structure and the way things are and da 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 da. So yes, I wholeheartedly agree. I take a long time to give a short answer. The answer is yes. I agree with you, Dean.
No, I think that's a huge point. I mean, if I go back to my car sales point when I went and did that, I mean, by the time I left, I was wearing shorts on the dealership floor, and everybody else was in suits.
Yep.
Well, shirts and ties. But I mean, it was one of those things to where I'd show up, they'd be like, "Well, you're gonna have to go home and change." I'm like, "No, I don't. I'll just go home, and I'm not coming back." And they're like, well, but I'm like, no, you need me here. I'm still at the top. So if I'm at the top, you can't say anything to me. I can do pretty much what I want to do when I want to do it. But exactly. I mean, I didn't make it long there after I said those things, and I was showing up in shorts, but I wasn't planning on staying there long anyway. But
I was in that corporate environment for about 4.5 years, basically till my kids were hitting graduation. And I left just because I knew writing on the wall, there's a buyout, then a buyout. And if you're a salesperson and you know much, like when your residuals start, you sell at a high level, and then those residuals just start trickling. They're just not doing things right. And then that's when I went off and had that relationship with the last guy that I had, the business partnership. And then now I won't have a business partner again. I just won't, because I said that once. Partners ripped me off for millions of dollars.
and here I am doing it again. Dean said it before too, I think.
We both had business partners. We both said we'll never do it, and here we are being co-founders or partners, if business partners, if you will. And so,
I've got 3 good directors. So those directors, like teaching, the biggest thing in teaching them is teaching them accountability with coupled with not being afraid to make decisions. So it's like, here's the accountability structure, but like I shouldn't be making your decisions. Like about a month ago, I get called into one of their meetings and they asked me this question and I answered it like that. And I came out of the meeting and it was something like, hey, like, with this new CRM, we can't do this, but we can do this. And I was like, well, why don't you just do this then? And they're like, okay. And then I get out of the meeting and I'm like, these are 2 smart people. There's no way they didn't think of that, which tells me they were afraid to make the decision without me either blessing it or telling them what to do. So I said, hey guys, can I jump back in this meeting real quick? And they're like, yeah, go ahead. So I jump back in. I'm like, let me ask you a question. Did either of you think of the solution I had? And they were both like, yeah. And I was like, what have I done to cultivate an environment where you feel like you don't have the autonomy to make a decision like that? Is there something that I've said recently that's made you feel like I don't trust you? Or, because I've always found with leadership, if you say, what is it I'm doing, then usually they kind of open up and say, well, actually, whereas if you go, hey, why did you do that? Then they defend themselves and they try to protect themselves. So I'm always just like, listen, what am I missing here? Like, why don't you feel empowered to make this decision? And they were both just like, hey, who we used to work under, which was my old partner, who was a micromanager, who would tell people what to do and then pull the rug out from under them and change the decision. And they're like, and I'm like, I understand you're burn victims, but you're out of the burn unit now. You're in the real world, and it's okay. Like, you're in the position that you're in because I want to trust your decisions. And guess what? I have a high tolerance for failure. I was like, think about our CRM. We went through, like, on our customer service CRM, we went from spreadsheets to Monday to teamwork to ClickUp. Guess who put us in spreadsheets to Monday to teamwork to ClickUp? This guy right here. Yeah. Because in my mind, and I've never really been on that side. Like I said, my specialty is product development, sales process development, and selling itself. That's like my wheelhouse. So I try to stay in that wheelhouse. And again, I've usually just tried to find partners who could do that other stuff, but it's always kind of not worked out for me. So they were just like, I was like, guys, I failed. Like, I didn't fire myself, and I failed 4 times on a pretty big initiative. So if you have a little thing about which link we should put in there, I'm not saying I don't care. I'm not saying I'm angry you called me in the meeting. But I am saying you do have the authority and the autonomy to make these sort of decisions without me in the future. Yep. And they were just like,
I think that's a hard thing for some people to understand. And what I have the problem of that I know is probably one of my biggest problems in that area is that I'll get called into one of those meetings, which I want our staff to be able to make those decisions, do those things in the background, and not be involved. But if I'm going through and I'm checking things, I go really super fast. I come across as pissed off, even though I'm not pissed off. Like, why did you do this? What about this? What about this? Because then my ADHD brain kicks on of boom, 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 boom. Look at all this stuff. I do, and what everybody has a hard time understanding is I do that to myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that's where me being a pastor for 20 years, a pastor, missionary, evangelist, youth director, whatever, I had to learn to temper my passion to appear as if it is compassion, right? So instead of, it's like, let me ask you. Now, let me think. And so I'm still emoting, and I'm still putting forth concern and passion, but it's not in like a frenetic like way where people are just like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's just more like, okay, this is where we're at. This is how we're, so I had to learn that, because when you're the pastor, you do that one time in a public setting and you got 80 people walking out the door and never coming back. So, you just have to be calm and it's like filter it. So I'm always just like, another internal thing that I say, adapt and overcome. Sales, when I run into an asshole in sales, it's just like, next. That's what I teach my sales guys. Just pretend in your mind there's an endless line of people that you need to talk to, and some of them are going to buy. Some of them would buy if you did better. Some of them will not buy no matter how good you do. And some of them would buy no matter who talked to them. So just get better so you miss those. But when you get that person and they yell at you, or they cuss you out, or you tried to get them and they gave you buying signs and then you didn't get just tell yourself, next. And in your mind, the next person in line comes. You're at the sales DMV. Think of how
it's going through the whole entire line and getting through it.
Right.
Exactly. And
because you're going to hear no a million times.
Exactly. And like, think about how, we all know the DMV's reputation for kindness and caring and really concern about the people. And like, if we wait too long, they come out and check on us, give us a glass of water. Like, we all know that's how the DMV is, right?
Right, exactly.
So,
my wife just had a great experience at the DMV, and I was shocked because I was like, "Go enjoy the sloths, have fun."
Yeah. So it's like sometimes.
So maybe they're taking a new leaf.
maybe, who knows? But I think at times you just have to have that sort of like tunnel straight vision of just like, okay, you've got all my focus. You're right in front of me. Why? Let's do it. I think this worked for you. Okay. And then no. Oh, I'm an asshole. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Next. All right. Now but that's not what people, until they learn the mindset and things like that. One of the things I've enjoyed throughout my career, probably more than anything else. And, I'm talking to my, I don't know what they're called, business coach guy, success coach guy that I'm starting to work with. One of the things that I've enjoyed really more than anything is, I'm a big mindset person. I believe sales happens in the mind, not on the script, although scripting is important, not in tactics, although learning tactics can be important, especially for people that don't have the mind of the salesperson, ADHD person that can just go, whoop, 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 whoop. We can just kind of flip around and do things all kind of crazy. But just being able to have that person in front of you, and then being able to just the way that you think is what happens. I used to have people say to me, especially when it was this was way back when I was 19. I remember this guy on the advertising police magazine, because I became the manager of that department. And he said, well, yeah, but you have that voice that just commands attention, and that's why you get sales. And I said, no. I said, I get sales because I expect to get sales. You get on the phone waiting for the no. I get on the phone expecting a yes and shocked when I hear a no, and it happens every single time. So then I got on the phone and I said, watch this. I said, within 10 dials, I will get a sale, and I will not use my voice. And I got on the phone and I was like, hello? Hi, my name is Dennis with the Fraternal Order of Police magazine. And the reason for my call, and I literally did that. And on my third pitch, I sold a $500 ad. And I just set down the phone, and the whole team was standing behind me because they're like, there's no way. Because a lot of them were guys who, they made sales because they had that voice in their mind. And I was like, it's not your voice. I mean, it's a tool. It's just like, if I'm a carpenter, there's certain tools that make jobs easier. And so having a good voice makes selling easier, especially in a virtual environment. Having a certain personality makes selling or relationships. And there are tools that make things easier, but that doesn't mean that those are the tools that are the only way to do it. Might be a little harder, might be a little whatever. And to me, the greatest tool is the mindset. And so I've taken, over the last 12, 15 years, I've taken somewhere between 25 and 30 young men or women in their early to mid 20s that when I met them, they were making $30,000 to $40,000. But I saw something in them, and I saw that they were smart and they had the right, they just had it underneath. They just didn't quite know it. Maybe they didn't have enough confidence or whatever. And I would mentor them, not on what to say and how to say it and who to call and when to call them, but just on how to think. How do you think? How do you deal with failure after failure after failure, and then turn that into success? And now all of those people I've mentored are all 300 plus income earners per year. That is my greatest business accomplishment in my mind and in my heart.
That's awesome.
Because I've seen, young people become, now they're in their young 30s, now they're married, they have nice houses, they have nice cars, they're in, VP level at some companies, or they're still selling and making $350 a year. And it's just listen, I don't claim that I'm 99% the reason that they're successful, but maybe my little key that unlocked that little piece of their brain over our time together, the few months or the year or two that I invested in them, maybe that unlocked them. Right now, I have two young men in my company. One of them, a year ago, he's like, hey, man, I remember you from corporate. I didn't really know him. And he's like, I remember you from corporate. I'd really like to come work for you and especially learn from you, because I know that you've helped a lot of people, and I'll do good at sales for a while and then I won't. So I put him in entry level SDR, setting appointments for me. And for 6 months, I just worked on the way he thought, how he's thinking. Every time he would say something, I'd say, now let's flush that out. Let's walk through that mind. Let's walk through that way of thinking. Now I would flush that out. And I say, now let's flip that just a little bit. Now think about it this way. And he listened and he applied. Now he's my lead salesperson making $2,000 to $3,000 a week. He bought a car last month. He's about to get his own house in a year. Not because I taught him the wonderful Dennis Meador method of sales and success, but I just said, dude, just think about it this way.
Yeah.
Another young man.
So what you
Go
did,
ahead,
Dennis, you were just coaching him well. I mean, you were able to see what, I mean, it's really a coaching process for habits and doing things and getting a mindset. I think that's awesome that you did that. So
yeah, I mean, I love it. I love it. That is, it's like, I'd never get paid for, well, I mean, I'm getting paid when they're in my company, but like in other places, like I didn't make a dime off of that, but I found joy in that. I found fulfillment in that. And
well,
so
that helps you get your mind right for what you're doing in your side of your things.
Exactly.
I mean, there's times that we go above and beyond. I mean, we charge $39 a month for the Simply Be Found listings engine. There's times we go above and beyond for that. But going above and beyond, it's giving back to the community and being able to do that side and coaching on stuff that isn't necessarily part of the plan, but it's coaching on that part that's going to make that member get as much as they possibly can from it. And
Absolutely.
there's things inside of the rules of thumb that when you put things out into the universe, more things come back, no matter what your belief system is.
Oh, yeah. And 100%, whether you call it karma, whether you call it you reap what you sow, whether you call it kismet, whether you call it whatever, wholeheartedly, I believe in that. And I believe investing in others, not because I need a direct return, but because, I saw something the other day and I was just like, man, this, the kids say this, right? That's all they say. It's nothing else. This. It said something like this: be the person you wish was in your life when you were younger. And that's all I'm trying to be, because I've never had a mentor. This success coach, I've just met with him one time, and I'm probably going to have to stretch out how I'm working with him over time. I didn't have anybody doing that with me. And I'm not just, I am a self-made man. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just literally saying, why not just be the person I wish I had in my life?
That's a good outlook on it.
So that's the way I look at it. And with my whole team, top to bottom, my VA and she's not in sales. I don't help her with her mind frame, but my VA, she's in the Philippines. She's worked for me directly for 4 years, 90% business, 10% personal. When I hired her, Manila, Philippines, the average wage was $1.63 per hour in where she lived. That was like the median, not the minimum wage. That was like the median wage. I hired her at $3 an hour. She was thrilled. Now here we are 4 years later. She makes $9 an hour. She's taken vacations that her family has never taken vacations. And she's like, I'm taking a vacation and I'm taking my mom, and I've never been able to do this in my whole life. And nobody in my family's been able to do this. And it's just it's those things that people like us, it's like we can just take for ourselves and just build up our own life. We can build businesses, or we could do all three.
Yep.
And when you do all three, there's a balance of self, success, and fulfillment. And when you have that balance of the three, then you can look at the mirror in the morning while you're brushing your teeth and not have to, you're a good person. You're a good person. Nobody hates you. You're not selfish. You don't have to do that. You just look at yourself in the morning and you're just like, let's just go be me today. And
I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I think the world we live in has changed in a lot of aspects for what that is. I find it interesting that you picked law for your podcast, for your podcast network. I have a lot of experience inside of the legal world, and I've had one of my marketing companies bought out by a venture capital company and all of that. So,
Right.
It's one of those things to where lawyers, they beat to a different drum. We have a lot of employers that use us. Some of them are skeptical when they first come over since it's a $39 product. But
hey, I'll be honest. I was like, why am I going to be on a podcast that sells a $39 SEO product or link product? But I was like, I watched a couple of your episodes. I'm like, these guys are pretty cool. Okay, let's hang out a little bit and see what happens. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, totally. It's one of those things to where we kind of did our whole entire marketing piece completely different than what was out there for the norm. We did the whole entire phone call piece. Then we noticed other people were making phone calls for us, and people would go Google it. We were already keywording for it. So I'm like, all right, we did our whole sales by phone. Dean and I dropped that. We went to 100% by chat and email. And it's been one of the best things we've had. But I think people buy in a different way now, and they're able to get those closes, which also means that we can keep our price extremely low, so we fit for that price point of a business that is struggling. We fit the price point of someone who's good and successful, and we hit that small business piece, because a lot of the ecosystem for what our competitors have,
they
go after the enterprise sale, and that's a total different market.
Yep. My client base,
the whole small business world's totally different.
Right.
My client base is 1 to 10s. That's all of my lists, everything we do, all of my systems, and my competitors are 8 to 15 times the cost of me, of us. Anyway, the other day I was like, so there's this other company. I won't say their name just because I'm not going to give them free publicity. But I because my podcast is getting ready to come out on this, like, whatever it is, leadership business thing. So I was like checking them out, and I'm like, oh, this is like the guy who's like not really my main competitor. And he was talking, and he's like, yeah, we can do this for like as simple as like, once a week for like 30 minutes, like just get one of the partners or one of the like top associates to sit down for 30 minutes, and we could do it over like StreamYard or whatever. And then we put out we do all the production, and then we put the podcast out on all the networks. And I'm like, and he goes, that's like $5,000 to $8,000 a month. And I was like, my program for a weekly podcast, half hour streaming, put out, plus we then take, because we do it in streaming, we create 90 pieces of content, 10 reels, 10 audiograms, and 10 quote static posts per episode. So 3 posts a day, plus every episode we create 2 to 3 pages of FAQ content to place on their website. We will place it on the website and place the video that goes to it with it. All they do is the production. Same thing, $5,000 to $8,000, $1,800 a month.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the best way to ever generate content. I think that's where the world has changed. You could start with that video. So I talk about, contractors, any industry out there. You could be a baker, you could be a lawyer, it could be anything. You can cut a video. And technically, you can cut a video right with your cell phone and get it pretty damn quality. And it really doesn't matter any editing. You can take it, you can then load it to YouTube. Now you got a transcript. Once you have that transcript, now you can put it inside the Chat GPT or whatever AI you ever wanted to use. It knows your natural language. It will write it about you and what you just said. And you can talk about the problem you just solved. It could be as short as could be. It could be, I just went out and, gave a bid on this house for this paint or whatever it might be. And you can use that, and it fits into every single piece of your business. It creates your FAQs, it creates your blogs, it creates your social media content, and it gives you that round robin. So
and you're going static, but don't forget there's like Opus Pro and Headliner and things like that where you just throw in the YouTube link. And I did this with a friend. He's a pastor, and he has like a little that was demeaning. He has a podcast about family life, and I didn't mean it that way, but then I realized that's probably how it sounded. Yeah. So, but he has a podcast, and him and his wife do, and it's called Family Meeting. And I see him in Facebook, and we were like friends in high school. Like he was like in 8th grade when I was a senior and in the youth group. So like he kind of looked up to me for no other reason. I'm 6'2", and he's still like 5'8". So I met with him actually just yesterday, and I asked him, I was like, dude, why don't you have any like social videos or like any posts? Like, he's just like, I mean, I make reels, but they take me like an hour or two. And I go, okay. So then I took one of his YouTube things, clips, and I dropped it into Opus Pro.
I was gonna say Opus Pro.
And it had 31 reels. Then I went into Headliner and I dropped it into the audiogram, and it had 12 reels or 15 reels. Then I dropped it into something else, and I said, look, now it probably take you about an hour because you gotta quality check it. You got to make sure it doesn't use the wrong your or whatever. You don't want to look like an illiterate, but you can take in an hour and create a month's worth of content if you know what you're doing.
Correct.
And that's why when we started just 10 months ago with the video or with the podcast that we did, we were like, well, we're putting it on 20 audio networks, which is we drop it into Podbean and there's 20 audio networks. And then, we make a YouTube channel and then we make shorts. And then I was like, we did 3 shorts for every show. Now for every show we do 10 shorts or reels, 10 audiograms, and 10 pieces of static content. So we went from 3 pieces to 30 in less time with systems and people. And yes, I have 8 full-time editors in Pakistan who just basically go in and edit that. I've got 3 people in the Philippines, and then everybody else is in the US out on my team. Most of those are like the production editor, our hosts, things like that. But like we create around 1,200 reels a month and around 120, actually it's probably over 120 now. It's probably about 150 shows. So we're probably doing 1,500. So we're probably doing almost 5,000 pieces of content a month and 150 podcasts a month. And there's 25 people. And we don't work evenings, weekends. I tell them, this is how you make money. Show up, make your money, take care of your business, and then walk out the door. People text me on the weekend, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, who died? And they're like, well, I just had a question about this customer. I was like, are they on the phone with you right now and they're going to cancel and charge back all the money? No, I just wanted it. Okay, talk to you Monday. It's like, we don't need to do this now.
Well, and with the way technology has changed and the way that technology has gotten, AI has taken us for what we have access to, has sped up that entire process. So we've noticed, people really freaked out. So our podcast, the Huddle's pretty damn new. We were talking about this in the green room before we came on, but it's pretty new. I mean, we started this mid-January and we're in March. Right. I had to think about where we were. But so we're producing between 5 to 10 different podcasts in a week. We have a schedule right now of 5, and we have ourselves caught up about a week and a half's worth of content probably out there. And once we get to 2 weeks, we'll start going 7 days a week. And a lot of people are like, well, you can't post to YouTube that much. And I'm like, why not?
Are you kidding me?
Well, I mean, I'm like,
there was just a viral, somebody posted 1,000 times. It was 100 times in a day or 1,000 times in a week. And they grew from like hundreds to millions of followers.
Right.
It's like there's an infinite beast that's hungry, and you're saying you need to feed it less?
And I'm like, no, that's not the way it is. This is the way it's going to be. Because I think the more content you put in, the better off you are.
Exactly.
Right now, we're posting about 10, right around 8 to 10 different shorts a day. I'm going to increase that to where we're going to be doing between 25 and 30 shorts a day because it's so easy to do and be able to produce that content.
Yep.
And it's a matter of doing it. Now, you might have some stuff, and it's no different than sales. You might have a video that goes out or a podcast that gets no watches.
Yep.
You're going to have some that are hits. You're going to have ones that you get done with, and you're going to be like, that's going to be stupid. And then it takes off, and you have no idea why.
Because and that's where you teach people to prime the pump, right? And so, like my team, I'm getting ready to have another meeting with them. I'm going to be like, okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. I want everybody who is in the U.S. or who has a VPN. I want when our customers, I just want us to turn on our YouTube channel, and I just want the YouTube channel to just play. Not because, and that'll only give them 15 views. It's not like we're gaming the system. I'm not hiring somebody in Bangladesh. Have you guys seen that like thing where the kid's on the wall and he's like doing this with like thousands of phones? We're not talking about doing that. All I'm saying is let's prime the pump a little bit so that, and make sure that it goes all the way to the end so that YouTube goes, well, if they liked it, maybe these will like it. Because that's how all the algorithms work. They go,
all the algorithms think the same.
Yep. They go like this. They go, what does the core audience think? And if the core audience is like, ooh, I like this. And they're like, okay, what does the secondary audience think? And then they go, ooh, I like this. And they're like, okay, what about mirrored audiences? Ooh, they like it. What about wider audiences that are mirror audiences but are different? There's different. And that's how all the, you're right, Rob. That's how they've always worked. I use the phrase, I'm trying to get a coin to be famous. If I can get one thing, right? There's a couple of things in my life that like I've always said, like, if I could, I would. Like, I'd love to go viral. I don't even care what it is, even if I have to fall on my face, just to be able to like say I went viral. You know,
I've never had one of my own products go viral. I've had other people's products go viral, but I've never really had one that I considered myself go viral yet.
Yeah. So, you know, and just for fun's sake, right? But like, I always say this, because this is how Google is built. And now these other algorithms have changed, because it used to be, you know, they were so, and then TikTok came in and was like, if you don't give them what they want, we will. And we're going to take all your eyeballs. And so now Instagram's like, oh, you liked that video about spoons? Let me show you 18 more videos about spoons. And you're like, I just thought it was funny. I'm not a spoon collector, you know? So like, so I say this, I say custom content on a continual basis that keeps people's attention will always catch the algorithm's eye. If you do that and you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it, it's like when the big shot walks into the bar. The bartender knows that's the guy who buys rounds of drinks. That's the guy who tips me $50 at the end of the night. When he walks up to the bar, the bartender looks over 8 people and goes, hey, what do you want? You know, I know that because I figured that out pretty damn quick. If I'm going to go someplace, the moment I walk in, I'm going to be recognized. Right. And so that's how it works with the algorithm too. The algorithm goes, oh, hey, Rob and Dean are here. Hey, everybody, Rob and Dean's here. Hey, Rob, hey, Dean. You know, kind of like Cheers and Norm. Sorry, Z. Sorry, millennials. No idea what I'm talking about.
I was going to say, most people would have no idea what that is today.
Everybody knows your name. Come on now.
I'm really shocked they haven't done a remake on that. Out of all the movies they've kind of brought back, I'm really shocked they haven't brought up that.
You know, they revamped Roseanne and then took her off 3 episodes in because she said something she shouldn't have said. I don't remember. That was back when cancel was real big. But I don't.
That was a movement.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, I guys, have I been of any help to you, or have we just laughed all the time?
That's the whole point of the whole huddle, is to take it different spots. Yeah, I think that your background brings a very unique piece to it. I think there's a lot of pieces that, you know, we could go through, we could talk about and kind of uncover where, you know, especially for your podcast network, it's one of those things to where this is the new version of the sales piece that's out there. And you have to be everywhere. Everybody's stuck doing the same stuff. And we see this across our members all the time and people we talk to inside the chat. People are stuck doing the same thing, hoping for different results. And that's not the world we live in anymore.
Yes, you have to be channel agnostic.
And you have to be everywhere.
Right.
No different than fishing.
That's what I mean by channel agnostic, right? It's just kind of like all of them. Yep. And then like what I always tell people is like, listen, like, not only do you want to be channel agnostic, back up to what you were saying just before that. Can you back up, Rob? What did you say just before I said you have to be everywhere? Being
yes. where it was,
where people are. So
I mean, where people are for where fishing was. Now I have to think about what I said. Don't do that to me.
So I could think.
He already forgot, so leave him alone.
Yeah. I thought you were backing up going to say it, so I was like, oh, I wonder what I said that was caught his eye.
So digital languages. We all have this, like think about this. We all and we have several people like this. You text them. You're like, hey man, what are you doing? What are you doing this weekend? And then like nothing, like crickets, right? And then the next day you're like, dude, like we're going to the lake and we're going to drink and fish. Are you down? And like crickets. And then like Wednesday, you're like, okay, dude, well, like if I don't hear from you, like don't be pissed at me. And then like nothing. And then Thursday, you're like, hey dude, on Facebook, and half a second later, what's up? And you're like, I just text you 4 days in a row on your phone, and half a second into Facebook, you're right here. But that's their digital language.
It is.
And so what people do is it's almost like, and I almost think it's like it's a carryover from the English and American sort of thought frame, which is this: if they don't speak my language, then why am I going to bother to understand them? Yeah. Like, I'm in France. Where's the people who are smart enough to speak English? You know, we went to Thailand and Bali, and it's just like, you know, it's like I live like kind of Central America, not kind of Central America, although they speak English here as one of their main languages. But like we go over to Mexico because it's just across the way. It's just a 40-minute boat ride from where I live. And like we go to border town, Chetumal, everybody speaks Spanish there. And it's like I can at least piece together, right? But like Thailand and Bali, and they're speaking, and I'm just like, we're just like, I can't even, you know, you can like point and like get things, you can't even do that. Like there's just no communication. And so like we think, because like I've been on Twitter X like 15 times in my adulthood since it's come out. I just don't speak Twitter. I try it. I put stuff out there. I try to build relationships. I speak a good Facebook. 60-year-old people on this island think I'm the funniest dude on the planet, right? So like, it's like I speak Facebook. I'm an ancient man in Facebook land. I've had one since 2008. I now speak LinkedIn, although I've had a LinkedIn account for 17 years. But I spent the last 6 months really learning what the vibe is and how to really make connections. Because I went on there like, hey, I'm here to sell you something because it's LinkedIn and it's all business. And they're all like, what?
We have a whole huddle on that, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Well, I learned my lesson. So, you know, now it's value and conversation, and I understand it now. But so I think we think because we speak LinkedIn that's all our customers speak.
Right.
And like, I had one of my clients say, well, do you have Pinterest? And I was like, you're a lawyer. And she's like, oh yeah, I get lots of clients off of Pinterest. And I was like, really? And she's like, oh yeah. And I was like, so now I tell my clients, I'm like, guys, just be channel agnostic. We can plug you in with what we use. We can take a piece of content and put it out to 10 places instantly and calendar it. And it's all done. So be on Blue Sky, Twitter X, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, have a Twitch channel if you want,
Right.
TikTok, be on all of them. And it's like, well, my customers are mostly on, and it's like, okay, so in this demographic, 30% of them fit your ICP, ideal client profile. But if you have 9 other channels where only 10% of them fit your ideal client profile, that's still 9 times more people than you would ever reach, that you would never reach.
Yeah.
Because people who live on Pinterest live on Pinterest.
Right.
People who live on Facebook live on Facebook. People who live in Thailand, I always use this, attorneys used to say, oh, I just don't think my clients use the internet. And I used to use this illustration. I used to say, yeah, I know. I used to say,
oh, Lordy.
I used to say, let me ask you a question. Let's pretend that you grew up in New York City. And you're living in New York City, and you hear about this place called LA. And it's so different than where you are. New York City's a little tough, a little rugged, a little grimy, but it's, metropolitan. It's got cool stuff. LA, they say, is sunny and beautiful and laid back, but you've never been to LA. Are you going to tell me just because you've never been to LA that there's no way that it could possibly exist? Just because you haven't been there doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And just because you're not on Twitter doesn't mean that you don't have clients or potential clients that are on Twitter or on LinkedIn or on Blue Sky or on well, I don't know, Telegram. I tried that. Did you guys ever try Telegram?
No.
I did. I worked with Telegram a little bit. I never understood the damn thing.
It was just like talking over each other.
Yeah.
It was just like it was either a lecture where no one could talk, or it was now everybody in your listening audience has been on Telegram. You're welcome.
You know, you made a comment though, and we struggle with small business owners. They go, I'm not going to do anything on Instagram because my daughter said, or my son, somebody told them that my clients aren't there. The problem is you don't know where they're going to be at and where they live.
Right.
That's a great analogy.
That is a great analogy.
Well, and I also tell them, I'm like, do you understand what an algorithm is? And they're like, oh yeah, blah, blah. I'm like, so do you think that your daughter that Instagram has given your daughter what she wants to see? Well, yeah. Do you think your daughter, demographically speaking, is going to need content from an attorney? Well, no. What about a 35-year-old person who has searched on Google in the last 6 months, what is a legal separation in Texas, and or whatever? Do you think that person might possibly be your client? Well, yeah. Well, where are they going to get content if not you?
Right.
And then they're just like, it kind of like lights on.
I like that.
So,
yep, I like that a lot. So we have two different programs for us. So we have our social media suite, which is basically it competes against Hootsuite, Buffer, all that different stuff.
yeah, we use Metricool, so I know what you're talking about.
And
Don't
then
hate
we
me
have
because I'm beautiful.
Then we have our whole listings engine, which that is our bread and our butter, our main program. And we describe that as, it works with over. Have you ever played in the citation world at all?
I mean, I've overseen people that did it for my company,
Okay.
but so I'm familiar enough to tell that I'm smart, but not enough to really be able to tell you yes because I understand you.
So you have competitors out there like Yex, you have Bright Local,
Right. Yeah, I know
all those guys out there. So what we did is we saw that there was a system that wasn't working. So we came in, we redid it. We did it as our own system. And what we call it the tree marketing method. So you have your organic matter down at the bottom, your root base. That's going to be all your citations. So you have all of your connections down there that you go out to, your voice search networks and all of your name, your address, your phone number. Get all those listings created inside of that root base. Then coming up from that, we look at marketing as being the website, because the website is where all of your ChatGPTs, your AIs, that's where all of your knowledge is for your company. Then you have your branches on your tree. So you'll have podcasts as one, you might have video marketing as one, you might have a blog, you might have social media, you might have paid ads. You have all these branches, and then you have stuff that branches off of those. But if you don't have a good root ball set up, and you don't have all those proper backlinks and everything in there, you're not going to be found everywhere. Because you don't know if someone's going to go find you on Apple Maps, or if they're going to go find you on Alexa, or if they're going to use Google or Bing and all that stuff mixed in. So, it's about being everywhere. That was a long drifted answer.
And it's kind of funny. When I was in SEO and we did question-based search, we did we did interviews and then use that to build content and then build question-based search.
You mean that new AEO that they're now talking about?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about
So they changed the question based. A lot of companies are now selling it the question based stuff that we've used for years in SEO.
Yeah.
They rebranded it and they started calling it AEO. It's the new version of SEO. It's the answer engine optimization. I'm like,
yeah, that's
using that shit for years.
Yeah.
Well, everybody in advertising marketing has to rebrand it and resell it to you.
Don't paint a Pinto and sell me a Porsche. You know what I mean? Like, come on, guys.
When I saw that, I was like, but we've been that's not new. Yeah. But okay, so using FAQs and everything.
So we use that same, like, the roots are like the questions and it digs in, and the video and the da-da-da-da, and then the site, and then, so very, very similar sort of illustration that we would use. And I think, that's what I like about, like, I always tell people, like, listen, podcasting is great, but like podcasting is just a means to an end. It's a way to create content to feed the beast.
Yes.
And so that's all we're doing for you. We're just feeding the beast, getting you in the algorithm, getting you in front of people, especially now with the way social search is, because of the way TikTok's changed everything. When somebody searches something, TikTok or Instagram, all the algorithms are just going to, oh, you like that? Like I said earlier with the spoons, it's just like, they're going to feed that. And it's like, if you aren't relevant, credible, and continuous, they're going to overlook you and just be like, don't pay attention to him. Here's who you need to listen to. And then
because you have the 3 pillars. So you have content, authority, and trust.
Right.
Podcast does all 3.
Exactly. Guys, I feel like the 3 of us could talk for 3 hours apiece.
We probably could.
We talked about that. We don't ever go 3 hours, but we could go there today. But
yeah,
but I'm not sure anybody would want to listen for 3 hours.
No,
yeah, they'd be like, and then they got into some like tree thing, and it was just like, and then all of a sudden the guy's like on ayahuasca talking about, I'm just kind of teasing. But anyway.
But Dennis, if anybody wants to find you, where do they find you at?
I'm everywhere, right? Because we're social. No. I think the best place, as a business owner, if you want to connect with me and really see like get that chance to see how I think, what we do, the content we provide, the videos, some of my videos, my clients' videos. I really am, like I told you, we have shows and even more shows that we're adding that are from people to attorneys. So like right now with my attorney. So following me on LinkedIn, Dennis Meador, and then our website, that's our hub, thelegalpodcastnetwork.com. We just took, and we had the Legal Podcast Network, and we did like a Facebook and an Instagram. But what I did is we did one that's like .answers, and that's for people who aren't attorneys but want the answers from our clients. Then we're doing .lawyers, which is for attorneys and getting content for them. And then .lol. So we're going to just start memeing the fuck out of lawyers because we work with them, and if they can make fun of each other, we're going to jump right in. And if they hate us I think enough of them will have fun with it, but I want to just basically jump into meme culture, and it's lpn.lol or legalpodcastnetwork.lolz or something like that. So we just divided out our content and created like basically 4 internal brands so that each piece of content that we're putting out goes specifically to different pieces of our target market, instead of having one huge brand that people have to kind of look for what they want. We just go, okay, you're a lawyer, you can laugh or you can get some meat. Oh, you're a consumer of legal needs. Oh, well then you can get some answers here. Oh, and we have 4 of them. I can't remember the 4th one off the top of my head, but so that's why I'm not directing you to my socials, because it would be it would be 4 handles at every outlet, and then we would go 3 hours, and it would be the worst hour and a half of podcasting from here on out.
But hey, at least maybe then we would have a record for something to be the worst.
There we go.
Bad publicity isn't always bad.
Yeah, exactly. I always say, love me, hate me, just don't forget me.
There you go.
Well, Dennis, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And if you ever want to come back on, let us know.
All right. See you at 3.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Have a good day.